on Road Peak Radio. Alright, cameras is set up, you guys. Alright, I'm here. We're going live. So y'all bear with me because I'm going to be reading from my phone to back up what I'm saying, right? Now check this out. The Moors conquered Spain in 711 AD, around that time, right? Now check this out. The Inquisition actually started in 1184. Look, Inquisition. The Inquisition was a powerful office set up within the Catholic Church to root out and punish heresy throughout Europe and the Americas. Let me read that again. The Inquisition was a powerful office. It was set up within the Catholic Church. They set it up to root out and punish heresy throughout Europe and the Americas, meaning North America, because the Moors was traveling out from the Caribbeans through Spain and all through the Americans. Black people just all over, right? Beginning in the 12th century and continuing for hundreds of years, the Inquisition is infamous for the severity of its tortures and its persecution of Jews and Muslims. Now let me explain that Jews and Muslim part, right? The Moors, and the Inquisition was founded in 1184, right? The leader was Thomas de Torquemada, Toquemada. Torquemada, right? He came up with the Inquisition, or the torture, to root out heresy. What was heresy? Anything that was non-Christian. Well, who were the Christians? The Christians at that time that was in Spain, they were the Visigoths who came from Europe. Were coming out the caves, the Visigoths. They came into Europe. The Moors was already in Europe. The Moors at the time was teaching the Europeans how to bathe, how to heal their sick. The Moors were setting up technologies in Europe that they didn't have, including language. The Visigoths in Spain now. The Moors conquered Spain in around 711 AD. Right? Now, mind you, this is before the Atlantic slave trade. This was before the horrible torture that was given as they depicted in movies such as Roots and the whippings and the slavery. All that you see that was going on in Africa with the slave trade, all that was happening in Spain before it took place in Africa. The Jews, okay, now the Jews are the cousins of the Moors, or the black Muslims, or the Muslims. They were friends. The Jews would sit on council for the Moors. They worked together in Spain, right? They were friends, right? I don't know what happened with their relationship over, but I do know before they gave the Jews part of Palestine after World War II with the whole Hitler thing, they first was talking about setting up the Jewish states in Africa first, and they decided to go to Palestine. Why in Africa? Well, because when the Moors left Spain, they set up Lagos, Spain, and Nigeria. That's why you got Lagos in Nigeria and you got Lagos in Spain. So they're going to send them over there in Africa, but it didn't work out, right? Now, check this out, y'all. We're not through. We are not through, and y'all bear with me. Now, this is coming from Morocco World News on the Moors, right? Because you got to remember, Okay, let's go back even further though before I get to this article. You got to remember at one point in the Middle East, up in North Africa, what they call Middle East, Mecca and Arabia and whatnot, you had Europeans living among them before they were gathered up and sent to the Caucasus Mountains. We gathered what all that we could find. Some of the Europeans, when they was gathering them up and making them cross the burning sands into the hills and cave sides in Europe, the Caucasus Mountains, our people hid and took some of the women to be wives, right? Hid them in that Middle East area and up and through North Africa. When the Moors left North Africa to go conquer Spain, because you got to remember the Moors conquered Spain, Portugal, and Rome. But when the Moors left that North Africa area, that's when you see the pale Arab population began to grow, right? Because most of the black, or what they call black Moors, and the soldiers, they were conquering and sending soldiers to conquer and to maintain Spain and Portugal, right? Large of the men, right? So those Caucasians who we didn't gather up, right? Who we couldn't find, who some of the brothers took to be wives, they started race mixing, and then they started mating amongst each other. And i.e. today you have the pale Arabs, or what they call Middle Easterners, up in that portion of Egypt, Morocco, Tunis, Algiers, Iraq, Iran, Arabia, all up in those areas, right? But prior to that, it was black Muslims, black Moors in that area, right? Oh, okay, because as I stated, the Moors not vacated the area, traveling and conquering nations, and when they ended their reign in Spain, they didn't go back to those areas. And not a lot of the areas are populated even more. Where the Moors went to after Spain was lost was back to America, to the Caribbeans, and parts of Africa from Nigeria to Ghana on down. They didn't go back to North Africa because the Spaniards and then the Rome and Portuguese, they start coming into the northern part. I'm thinking still seeking to fight with the Moors. Now check this out. When the Visigoths came into Spain, they wasn't traveling over the world. They were just stuck in that European part, from up in Spain and Europe, that in that area. They didn't travel to the Americas and throughout the world. They was up in that part. They didn't know how to get to the Americas and different parts of the globe, right? So when they finally came out of Spain and out of Europe, and they was hitting Africa, the Americas, the Caribbeans, all they saw was black people, and they just said, well, damn, all of these are Moors, because the only black people they was dealing with at the time was the Moors and Muslim culture and the Moorish culture. They didn't know any type of, or any other different type of tribes, or any other different type of religions of black people from the Americas to the Caribbean and to parts of Africa. They didn't know, so they called all black people with Moors. And so the doctrine of discovery, the Pope, any anybody that wasn't a Christian, they said it was heresy, and they was allowed to do or proceed to torture them like they did in Spain. So all black folks was getting tortured. What are you then from Brazil to North America? You know what I mean? From Jamaica to wherever, because we was all considered Moors, because they couldn't tell the difference, right? Black was black. They couldn't tell the difference between a black Moor or a black Christian. So they just abused and enslaved anything dark skinned, all the way to the Americans, all the way to the Native Americans. They enslaved them as well, right? So the DeSoto and the whole war with the Spaniards in North America. But also the Moors was traveling to Africa. You had Moors as Gaspar Yanga. You think they tell where history got it wrong, or where they lied at, is that they want to tell you that how black people got into Mexico and these other places is through the slave trade. No, they were already there before the slave trade. It tells you right here. Let me read it again. Let me read it. Yeah, it tells you right here. Let me get this one more time, so you don't think I'm making this up. The Inquisition was a powerful office set up within the Catholic Church to root out and punish heresy throughout Europe and the Americas, right? And it started in 1184. So they was rooting out the Moors, and since 1184 coming to the Americas, when they learned how to travel by the stars from the Moors, and learned how to travel by compasses from the Moors, and they was coming back and forth to the Americas and back to Spain, trying to teach their doctrine of Christianity, which was rejected. But what did they have? They had the guns and the cannons. But let's continue to go on, though. And see, this lecture is for scholars to go back and research what I'm saying, and then they'll put it back out however they put it back out. You know, I'm just giving you the basis of why we need to study the Inquisition and the Moors first, and then go to Africa, because this is ground zero. This is ground zero. Okay, let's go. Expulsion of Moors from Spain, a forgotten human tragedy. Right, and this coming out of Morocco. Right, this is from the Morocco World News. Right. The expulsion of the Moors and Jewish minorities began to smolder long before the fall of the last redoubt of Muslims and the capitulation of the last Nasrid kingdom in 1492. Immediately after the end of the Reconquista, the strategists of the Spanish crown had already begun to consider a drastic solution that could allow their country to dispose of its ethnic minorities, which the Black Moors, that had become cumbersome, thus to start a smooth religious, cultural, political, territorial, and ethnic unification. Now I want to say this. What they call pale Arabs is, and the pale Arabs, what I'm saying is the children of the black Arabs and the Caucasian white women, right? They too studied Islam. They too went into Spain as well, right? And so when they was rooting out the Moors, a lot of them converted to Christianity. Okay. To achieve this, because there was either conversion or die. So when you see these movies like Heir to the Land and whatnot, and they were saying Moors, a lot of those dark-skinned Moors, but they get white people to play they've been getting white people to play the part of black people in history for years. I think it does a disservice because it's not teaching true history. Let's go. So to achieve this goal, and at the request of the Catholic monarchs, on September 17, 1480, the first court of the Spanish Inquisition was created by Cardinal Mendoza and the Dominican father Thomas de Torquemada. Now, he got 1481, but I traced it all the way back to 1184 when the Inquisition was getting started. Okay, but we keep going. On January 2nd, 1481, the Inquisition became a national institution by means of which Spain would exercise its control and repression against Muslims and Jews. From that date, Spain was turned into a Catholic state and died with one of the most inhumane and repressive institutions in history. That's what happened to the Moors in Spain. What happened to the black Moors in Spain was worse or the same, but it was brutal than what happened with during the slave trade. It was ridiculous. As the Moors became a minority in the country, now, how did that happen? Let's read it again. From that date, Spain was turned into a Catholic state, endowed with one of the most inhumane and repressive institutions in history. As the Moors became a minority in a country that was hostile to them. See, at first they was the majority. How did they become the minority? Because then, too, they started sleeping with their women, the Spanish European white women, and the children that they were having with the Spanish white women took on the Spanish white women's culture and identity and Catholicism or Christianity. They wasn't passing on. And then those children married on to more whites. And as time went on, the Moors was getting lighter and lighter until they became the minority. Okay, as the Moors became a minority in a country that was hostile to them, they suffered from the abuse of inquisitors who vehemently mistreated them through secret trials and widespread abuse. Just like today in America, secret trial, widespread abuse, meaning they get behind closed doors, they come up with new laws. Whenever they see the gain of black people, you notice laws change, things change secretly. You don't even know what's happening. It's like with the case of Justin Jones and Justin Pearson, right? I knew when I saw Justin Jones singing that song, "We Shall Overcome Someday," with Baez, Baez, or Baez, how do you say her name? When I saw him singing that song, what I knew then is all he was going to do is get his seat back. Hopefully the young man has enough kahunas to file a lawsuit and stick it to him and tell him you would never mistreat a black man like you just did ever again as long as I'm alive, right? I hope that he don't just settle for a seat back or reappointed back to the same old seat he had. You don't, meaning when after that, you don't go back the same way you left. If you come back, you coming back like a king. You don't have all this big fanfare and you just go and take your old seat back and that's the end of it. So now it got to be something more to it than that. And the reason why I say the song "We Shall Overcome," because when the song was created in 1901, it was titled "We Will Overcome." Like with force, we will overcome this thing, right? But it was written by a white man. But when they rewrote it in 1959 for the Civil Rights Movement, it became "We Shall Overcome Someday." We don't know when. Like they say, someday may never come. Shall, everybody shall do something, but hell, that don't mean that you're gonna do it. Someday is you don't have no clue, no mathematics, no science, no anything. you someday, right? You don't even have a plan on how you're gonna overcome. So we don't like to fall for that. That's the okie doke, right? All right. Because of the protection afforded to the Moors by the nobility, right? Now, the nobleman was allowing protection to the Moors, but the Moors had to pay for that protection, right? To keep the Catholic Church and the Inquisitors off of them because they had a buffer. It was just like the federal, same thing. Just like when the Emancipation Proclamation was signed and the federal troops was standing in the way of the racists from attacking the blacks. But then as soon as they pulled those federal troops out of the South, then Jim Crow and the black coats and all that was horrific. I mean, the point I'm trying to make is what happened to blacks in America was already going on and happened with the Moors in Spain. Okay, come on. So, because of the protection afforded to the Moors by the noblemen, the Inquisitors were losing a significant source of profit, which consisted mainly in fines and forfeitures that could cover all the assets of a convicted person. Out of the 10,000 Inquisition trials that took place at the time in the old Nasrid kingdom, the majority involved the spiritual leaders of wealthy Moors whose properties were confiscated and appropriated by inquisitors, meaning when the Moors got there, the Spaniards was living in filth. They was poor. European Spain, the Visigoths, had nothing, right? Moors built it up, built the riches, gold, building mosques, marble floors. I mean, they decking it out. Things you see today in Spain, the Moors created, right? And the structures are still lasting to this day. Okay, but as the Moors started becoming a minority, because at one time they was a majority, they started, after they sleeping with the women, they became a minority. Then when they started, how Spain became to get rich is by finding ways of taking the wealth of the Moors and lining their own pockets. That's what happened. Okay, the majority involved the spiritual leaders of wealthy Moors whose properties were confiscated and appropriated by the Inquisitors. Right, and it's the same thing happening in America. Ride a nice car, have a house, got a job, got some money, doing these black coats and Jim Crow law, had you jaywalking, you have to pay this fine. That's how he's making money. And they've been making money that way all up until Ferguson, Missouri. Making money by, you can have a town, right, where it's 20% black, but they're mostly in court and paying traffic tickets. That's how they justify getting money out of black folks' pockets, putting into their pockets and into their system, draining black wealth, right? Well, they was doing that first in Spain in the Inquisition with the Moors. Okay, come on. Since the holding of the Council of Trent between 1545 and 1563, the situation of the Muslim minority remained in the country further deteriorated. As such, the Moors became gradually regarded as an unassembled community. Ever since, the most influential religious fanatics started calling for their expulsion from the country. That was what went on. The hostility against a persecuted minority due to its culture, tradition, and religion was deeply rooted in every part of daily life of the community. When the Moors washed their hands before eating, this behavior shocked the Christians. The application of henna on the soles of the feet and palms of hands for reasons of hygiene also shocked the Spaniards, who considered the Moors to be less masculine. They saying that, and this rolls in today, if you wash your hands, right, and hygiene before you eat, to the savage, that wasn't masculine. Right. The Moors were differentiated even more of their tortures in that they did not eat pork or meat from other livestock if it was not previously slaughtered according to Muslim law or Muslim rituals. Early on, fasting during the month of Ramadan, circumcision, and Muslim burials, which were among the most detectable differentiating factors for the Moors, were increasingly practiced by the later and without much discretion. Regarding the diet, some Moorish specialties aroused the jealousy of older Christians who could not accept that Thai religious minority have the monopoly of horticulture and a diet in which fruits and vegetables were predominantly present. The other differentiating factor between the Moors and Christians consisted of the concept and the religious organization of time. In addition to the religious and cultural differences between an intolerant majority guided by its religious fervor and its crusading spirit, and a minority exposed to the wrath and persecution of religious authorities, what further incited the resentment of Spaniards was the fertility of the Moors, as it was regarded it as a threat to their country's stability and religious and political unity. Same thing. Spanish society of the time attributed this fertility to the lasciviousness and lust of the Moors. However, as pointed out by same thing, like they saying that since the Moors' population was growing, they had to paint the picture of that they were just full of lust, having sex like rabbits, just like they did with blacks in America. Tried to say, oh, we saw a white woman and had the lust over and drool dripping down your mouth and you chasing after them white breasts. And I mean, it's just same thing is all I'm saying. Same thing they did to the black Moors in Spain. That mindset traveled with them to the Americans, and they done the same thing here in North America. They done the same thing in Africa, done the same thing in the Caribbean. Same thing. All throughout the America. Wherever because why? In their eyes, if you were black, you were the Moor. And they were going to treat you as such. According to Rodrigo de Zayas, this choice was motivated by two main reasons. On the one hand, the ecclesiastical career enabled the Spaniards to enjoy economic security at a time when Spain was grappling with a dire economic crisis. On the other hand, it gave them hope for a major social promotion. I just want to say this, though. I'm going to read this real quick and I'll be through. However, as pointed out by Rodrigo de Zayas, the fertility of the latter was due to objective reasons related to the religiosity of the Spanish society of the time and with the country's socio-economic development. Contrary to the Moors, who were attached to Islam and were present in very small numbers, if at all, in Christian religious orders, many Spaniards tended to opt for a religious career. Now, I just want to say this. Don't be fooled, right? What took place in Spain with the Moors and how, when I say tortured the Moors, they were cutting limbs off. They was beating them. They was killing them. They was burning them. They was, that Inquisition period with the Moors was horrific. From there, it spread it. That disease spread it throughout the land, all the lands, from the Americas to Africa to the Caribbean. And you was thinking, and in Africa and in North America, they were wondering what was that's why when they first saw the white man come into these areas, and in particular in North America, when they first saw him, they greeted him. They didn't know what was on his mind. He came here to conquer and to rule. He already had a predisposition of his agenda and what he wanted to do. He already had it. He knew what he already created the narrative. We had no idea. We want to know what happened. Where's all this hostility coming from? Because he started with the Moors in Spain. He started to dislike because he didn't like. This is what he realized. He realized two things. He didn't like how advanced the Moors was. Not that they were bragging, but the fact that they lifted the European Spaniards up from the dust, from dirt, and gave them civilization. Right. Then he noticed he didn't like, he noticed that when these Moors were sleeping with the Caucasian women and having mulattoes children, he started noticing, well, damn it, if that child goes on to marry another black or Moor, their population will start to dwindle. So the Pope was ordaining the torture and the Inquisition because they wanted to make Catholicism and Christianity the number one rule. And then they said, well, damn, if we can accomplish this in Spain, let's accomplish it throughout the world. Let's hire somebody. Let's create some pictures of a white Jesus. Let's go all the way with this thing. And under the sword, under this cross, and under this Bible, we can rule the world. And here we are today. Reason why I'm saying all this is because the time is up. It don't the effect is played out. You know, there's no need for it. What I'm saying today, there's no need for one man to try to rule over another man. Right? There's no need for black men to keep marching and singing songs and trying to get accepted or sympathy or approval by their white counterparts. It's play. He don't have anything to give. He's through too. He's suffering. Hell, his world is collapsing. You know, so it's time for everybody to enjoy life and be the men and women that God intended them to be. There's no need for the racism. Stuff been going on since the 12th century. So now, go back and study everything that I said. Check out what was going on with the Inquisition. Find out who the Moors was. They were black people, and they were already in the Americas. They were already in Africa. They were already in the Caribbeans. And they called it, matter of fact, if you were black at that time when white people came up out of Europe, everybody was a Moor. They didn't know the difference. Yeah, because the only blacks that they were dealing with at the time were the Moors. They didn't know different tribes and whatnot till later on as they started going into these countries and studying and finding out the differences. But on sight, just by look, when they first saw you, you was a Moor. Vero Peak Radio, we out. Thank y'all for listening to my live audience on the radio show. Thank y'all for tuning in. You know how we do it on the Spreaker app, Vero Peak Radio, right? Reminding you all, check us out on YouTube, Vero Peak Radio. Check out my movie, Black's Journey, Peace to Chaos, on Grind City Network, which is on the Roku channel. But get ready, though. We're getting ready to launch our own streaming platform. So y'all stay tuned for that. It don't stop. We keep rolling. I want to say this before I get out of here. The information that we share on Vero Peak Radio is for all races and all religions, because the truth is the truth, right? It's for everybody. It's not just for one group. Just like you go to school and we had to learn about Daniel Boone and Sam Houston and the Civil War and certain generals and whatnot. Just like you need to learn about black history. Not the black history that they give you in schools with just Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And no, I'm talking about black history from Brazil, black history from Morocco, black history in Spain, black history in the early Americas. That black history, not saying the real black history, but the black history they don't want you to know about. You need to know about these things. Why? Because now we can be versatile. That way when we greet each other, I know about your history and culture. You know about my history and culture. White history and culture is white history and culture. It's not black history and culture. Black history and culture is black history and culture. We not the same. And that's another thing. Old black people, y'all gotta stop saying that we all not the same. We all may bleed red. We all don't have the same culture. We all don't speak the same language. We all don't have the same ideologies. We all don't have the same ideas. We all not even looking at race the same. They don't see you the same. That's why you keep going through so much hell. Because in your mindset, you trying to convince them to see you as their equal, and they can't do it. They weren't made to do it. So stop it. Stop pleading through these damn songs. Y'all killing us over here, man. That is not the heart of black people. When tragedy strikes, to get up in a group and talk about teary-eyed crying, especially men, and singing some damn song. That accomplishes nothing. Action, and action behind words, lawsuits, digging in folks' pockets, going after your goal. We will overcome. Not we shall. If you're going to sing the song, go back to the 1901 original. We will overcome, because we finna make sure we overcome. Not we shall someday overcome. Kick that out. They changed all that. That's to fool you. In 1959, the song changed for the civil rights movement. So you can get out there and say, we shall overcome someday, while he back there laughing at you, knowing that you didn't even know the meaning behind the words. It was a trick. But we can go on. That's another subject.